Okay, folks, this is a short video on how to disassemble and replace an LED on the LED board on a Moka CO-18 cryojet projector. Nice unit, very nice made. I like the Moka brand. The components that they use inside this monster makes the difference of competitors out there. You see it at bargain basement prices. It's what's inside this black case that really counts. So give me just a minute. First thing I've got to do is pull these screws out here, 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 and last down here in the corner. By removing those 6 screws, this entire pivot mounting plate will just drop off the bottom, and that'll expose the screws to take the bottom plate off, which will be one here. Then there's some recessed screws on both ends underneath this plate. So I'm going to pause the video long enough to pull this plate off. This would be a good time for you to pull your plate off also. Okay, now that we have removed the swivel plate off the bottom by removing the 6 screws, which I very conveniently put in a plastic bag so I don't lose them, I'm now ready to remove the screws on the bottom. And I recommend these 2 screws right here that you don't remove completely. Just back them off to the real loose, and you'll see why once you get inside the cabinet. But do not remove these 2 completely. Just loosen them, but remove the outside screws, in the center screws, and these screws down here. Take those loose. You will also need to I loosen these on the corners slightly. I do not take them all the way out. And this is a little single panel piece right here that can stay in place or come out depending on how much room you need to work. I think I took this plate off itself. So all you got to do is remove these 4 screws, and on the opposite end, down on the valve end, I think I just loosened those. I didn't even have to loosen those, come to think of it. So you shouldn't even have to mess with the ones on the valve side. But you do need to pull the outside pair of these, and slightly loosen these in the middle. And then you should be ready to just drop this plate off, which I'm going to do right now. And I'm sorry if I'm making you dizzy turning the camera around. I'm not a professional photographer, but I can help you fix your jet. So we're going to put you on pause one more time. This would be a good time for you to pull the bottom plate off yours. Notice the difference in the screws. The 2 screws right here that you loosen, and the ones on the outside, these are round head screws. These 2 are, but these are all flathead recessed screws, and this is also a beveled recessed screw. Important to get these in the right place, because when you put this mounting plate back up against that, you can't have any protrusions. This needs to be level. So make sure you don't get your screws mixed up. Again, these have a round head on them, see, and these have a flat, real flush head to fit down into this area here. It's kind of recessed into the metal to accommodate it. So let's pull our plates off now. See you in a minute. Second segment, I left you with taking these screws out here. I said just loosen these 2, and here's why. There's this is holding up is a little bracket in there that is kind of supporting your electronics from the power up your LEDs. This is your electronics that we had to have. And I think what I was talking about earlier, I'm going to go ahead and pull this panel off now, but I'm also going to go ahead and remove these 2 screws very carefully, and you'll be able to access everything then. So let's do that now. Okay, so the bottom plate is off. It's laying here. And also notice I just made a little mark on it so I knew which side it would be facing up when I went to reassemble, just so I won't have to try to match up screw holes, although I'm a screwball. So alright, so right now we're going to look inside and look at the components that make up this nice little piece. Up here is, like I said, like the electronics and your LED drivers. That'll also have your DMX control, which feeds the LED driver. Also, it will have an output which will come down here to your solenoid valve. And depending on where you live in the United States, that'll be 120 volt. In Europe and other places in the world, it'll be, I guess, a 220 volt. That can be switched, but if you do, it's a pain in the tail end. To put it bluntly, not only do you have to switch the solenoid, but you also have to switch your electronics, the power supplies and things, so that the higher voltage doesn't fry everything. Getting back to the job at hand, there again, your path of your CO2 is coming in. There's your valve. It's going to be open and closed by DMX. And then you also have this nice little feature right here, this silver ring that you see back here in the back. And you see the LED voltage cables for each individual collar going in. And what happens on this board to get to it, see this screw right here? We got to remove the 4 black screws. Now, the hard one to get to, but it can be done. You can see down into this hole. Let me get a better light over here. There's a screw located right underneath that darn solenoid valve, and who in the world ever decided to put that in there? They should be sent a nasty letter. But up underneath that solenoid valve is black screw number 4. I found the best way to get into it is don't have to do it, but if you do have to get into it, a screwdriver like this can get you right down in there, and what you do, just push. It'll spin on there, won't hurt a thing. Just push the top of the solenoid valve, and lo and behold, there's our mystery screw right there, and I'm right on it. And all I'd have to do is take this screw out, and then I'm into the LED board. Now, to reassemble this thing, you're basically going to do the same thing. And this kind of takes us to the next segment. Okay, now how to get to the LED board. As I spoke earlier, you have 4 screws, black ones right here, one here, one at 9 o'clock, and then you're going to have one at 6 o'clock, which is directly under. Push it to either side. I found the easiest to push it to the side with the wires over here, but that spins no problem at all. And right down here is the little hiding monster, and we can get to it with a screwdriver like this. It's not any difficulty at all. Bam, right there on it. It takes a little bit of patience to get that screw back in that hole for reassembly, and I have found that it helps to have some really fine screwdrivers to hold the screw, to kind of get it in the spot. Or if even better, I would say if you would magnetize the end of your long screwdriver at least enough to hold that screw long enough to drop it into the hole, would benefit you greatly. Now, I'm not going to go through I won't lie to you, this is a very difficult piece to get in and out, which is most likely how the LED got probably damaged in shipping anyway. This is an extremely tight tolerance right here where I'm pointing. I mean, you can see this little old teeny screwdriver, it won't even fit in there. It's just right up against it. So there's a little bit of pressure goes on between the top of the solenoid valve and the surface of the casing up here where the LEDs are. And what's on the back side of this, I have pictures of when I was doing my repair. I took still photography and possibly even a little bit of video. I'll see if I can't clip it in here. The LEDs are on a circular circuit board right on the other side of this metal cover board, and the LEDs are facing, of course, the other direction, and then there's lenses that fit down over the LED, and those lenses fit up against the cutouts in the metal case, and that's how you get this really attractive looking front side here. These are the lenses I was talking about, and they just sit on top of the circuit board, and I'll show you pictures of it here. Let me try to get you somewhat level so you don't get dizzy. But these things just sit on top of the circuit board, and the LEDs are in there, and this thing put out a massive amount of light. I really love the design. The only issue, like I say, is this tolerance right here, this surface area, and this is where the LED gets sheared every time. Of the ones I've seen, this is so tight right here that if this thing gets bounced coming across the ocean in a container or by whoever the shipping company is, even if it's air, if it gets tossed, I think a really hard blow in transit is what has damaged a couple of these. One, and the percentage is small that it's happening, but let's face it, this is Earth, and people will be people, and things will get handled how they get handled. And if it's man-made, it will eventually require service. But Moka is behind you to help you, and that's why we're doing this video. Great unit otherwise. I mean, if that's the only thing bad I can say about this unit, it'll last you for years and years and years of rough service out in the field. It's a great little unit. This isn't an issue unless you're shipping it from one side of the world to the other, in which case I guess occasionally the one gets bounced extremely hard. But this is a quick fix. It's just, I'm telling you got to be patient, because the issue is when you go to place these things back in here, they just slip fit over the LEDs, and all of a sudden, to get it back together, you've got to invert it, which means if they're loose at all, they're going to fall off, and then you got to start over. And what I found is I took my hot glue gun, and I'll have a picture of that too, and just took a hot glue gun and put just the smallest drop, maybe two really small drops on the corner of where the lenses sit up against the circuit thing. And like I said, just put the smallest drop, and it'll hold your lenses in place until you can get her set, until you can come in the backside and get it set in there. Again, the problem is when you go to reassemble, and this is the only reason I don't go ahead and pull mine apart. It took me a little while to get it done, and I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's not, but it can be done. And once you do it, man, you got a great piece here. In fact, it's stronger than it was when you left to the factory, because you've added the little bit of hot glue to help hold everything in place. Had that hot glue been there when it's shipped, and that may be an easy remedy to solve this problem if it happens any future lights. Just add a few drops of hot glue to help hold those lenses from shifting, because when the lens shift, it's shearing the LED light off the board. And I have soldered mine back in place, and I will show pictures of that also. When you go to reassemble, and that's where I want to take you now, is in reassembly. When you go to slip this board and ring back in here, again, this is really, really tight right in here, really tight, and you're going to run into it too. And be real careful when you put it back together, you don't shear it off again. Or if you have to use a replacement board, make sure you don't damage the new one. This area right here is really tight, right underneath there, about where that screw is. So what I had to do is I took right down into here with a larger screwdriver than this and kind of went under the valve and found a hole somewhere in there. But I just kind of pushed down onto the metal housing to kind of give myself a fraction of room to slip this back into place. With the hot glue holding the lenses and holding down on the case to get that little extra room, I was able to drop her right into place. And then you can turn it around, look at the front side, and say, okay, where am I at? And you can kind of look if you're off any. And it has a little teeny bit of wiggle room right up to the point where you can get your screws lined up. Again, it helps take a screwdriver like this. Be careful, don't damage the female threads, but you can kind of use this to kind of line your holes up, get one started loosely, get two started loosely, and you can pretty well get the rest of them, and then go around and tighten them in a pattern. But do not over tighten your screws on any of these screws, because this is sheet metal and these are really nice high grade screws, and they will just strip it right out if you over tighten. Other than that, reassembly is just the opposite of taking it apart. Have fun. If you have any questions, Farrell Electronics. I'm Pete Farrell, and we're located in Charleston, West Virginia, and we are an authorized Moka service station. You can contact us by email, Pete Farrell, it's PETEFERRELL at msn.com. That's Pete Farrell, one word, at msn.com. Have fun, y'all. Well, as you can see, this is unit number 2. It is now fully functional. The circuit board wasn't tore up, wasn't broken as bad on this second unit as it was the first. Only one side of the chip was bent down, and I was able to straighten it out and retack it with the soldering iron, and it seems to be doing good, so got it fixed.